public participation this evening? Yes,
I just had a few things.
speak up, please.
Yep, I can stand up too if you'd like. On the chain of command, just to clarify for myself, maybe others, but what is the power of the chain of command in this room? Is it school board then administration or administration school board? So having issues or wanting to talk about things, you know, who makes the final decisions, I guess is what I'm asking.
It depends on what it is.
It does depend. Okay, that's what I was wondering.
And as far as what you're saying, administration of school board, it is administration and then to the school board. Like I said, again, it depends on what the issue is. But
Okay.
there's something will end at administration.
All right, and then I also had a question, like on the form, like say Stephanie, Sinead, and Melissa were friends and they wanted to go out to Pat's Pizza to eat, they couldn't do that, right? There's 3 members together, is that considered a forum? Like they weren't talking anything about school, outside of school business, and they wanted to go out to Pat's Pizza and have a lunch together, is that against the rules, or is that okay? I guess that's what I'm asking, what the rules are.
It could be misconstrued as a quorum, but
Yeah.
they are adults and they have their friendships outside of school, outside of the school board.
Right, okay.
So it could be, you know, looked upon as, oh, they're having a secret meeting, but
And then say like administration, school board member too. Say you and Kenny are friends from the past, want to go to Pat's Pizza, have a beer and pizza. No rules there, no conflict of interest?
between me and Ken,
Or you and
it
Ms.
doesn't
Warnow?
constitute a quorum and someone like that. I mean,
Yeah.
if he needs to talk to the school board chair for something, he can pick up the phone and do that.
Okay, I just
I mean,
trying to.
what happens if, you know, if 3 of us meet in the food store?
Yeah,
I mean, we have to go to opposite corners of the store? I mean, you know,
yeah,
let's be reasonable here.
right, I just didn't know the
Yeah.
rules, so I'm just trying to clarify.
I think we know enough not to talk about school board business when, you know, we're not in session, because we're not a school board member unless we're in session.
I'm not sure it's actually, okay, thanks, Mike, I appreciate it. I just had a couple other things too, if you don't mind. I'll try and go as quick as I can, I know you want to get out of here. On bullying, we went over that, was there any more, I know Ms. Warmo was gonna look into programs and things.
I can't hear you, I'm
On
sorry.
the bullying, Ms. Warmo was gonna look up on certain programs come into the school. I didn't know where we were standing with that because
My report.
It's in her report
it
this
is in the
evening, so.
report. Okay, all right, yeah, that wasn't, I didn't know that was in there. I do have things that I found that are free programs through the state and through other organizations throughout the state, great resources here that will come in to the school. So if
Okay.
the board wants to take a
Well,
look at it.
let's wait for the report and see what happens. If you need be, we'll get that information from you, so.
And then on the heating system, from what I understand, the LCOC was supposed to sever 4 of the utilities, the sewer, the heat, the electrical, and the water. And I've heard 3 of the 4 have been severed off, but the heat from the school is still heating the LCOC? Are the taxpayers paying for that through the school budget, or is the LCOC
The
reimbursing?
LCOC has contributed something to that this year. We're going to be talking to them about another contribution. And with the new heating system plan going in there, that's going to be metered. So there'll be an exact figure on what it's going to cost to heat that side of the building and go going forward from there.
All right, so they're looking into separating and being 2 different entities with heat also as the other utilities.
I wouldn't say separating is the good word. You know, they can go either way. We can actually, you know, shut that system down. They can actually put a boiler of their own over there. The ideal situation would be to put a new boiler in and actually meter the heat going in there, and they pay us for the heat going in there.
Okay.
Keep the building heating system intact.
And I just wanted to clarify, we discussed last week on the immunity when reporting to DHHS and Child Protective Service that the person reporting has immunity. But I just wanted to clarify if there is a false reporting of neglect and abuse, would the immunity be dropped, and would the disciplinary consequences ensue for that person that did that false reporting?
I don't have that answer.
Oh, I'm just curious because, you know, I just don't want to waste the state's time. I mean, there's kids out there that really need the caseworker there, and if there is somebody being, for whatever reason, an example being vindictive or whatever, you know, retaliating or personal vendettas for whatever reason, and...
It does happen, and like I said, I don't have the
Yeah.
answer on what would happen in that case there.
Well, I was concerned about the immunity, Mike, because I don't think they should be, I think if it is found it's a false report, it should be dropped, and I think, you know, disciplinary consequences should be ensued from it.
And that is not part of the program right now, we didn't approve that, so.
Okay, thanks. Thank you for your time.
Okay. Any other public participation? Yes, Wanda?
I had a question on the AOS budget meeting on April 11th. The difference, or I think it is.
April 11th?
Yeah, that's what it says.
What am I missing here?
They posted up here, I don't know what day.
We announced that at the last meeting,
Okay,
that's why we can't.
Okay, I'm just wondering what the increase is. On March 13th, our contribution was 101,000, and it looks like now it's 133,000. No,
It's actually in your budget, which I'll be distributing later tonight.
I just asked again, what's that, Mr. Johnson?
That's for the System Administration Cost Center, which would include money for the audit, school board member stipends, insurance, and dues and fees for this board. There's a difference between system administration and AOS assessment, and it's listed on page.
I think we can cover that once we get into the budget material tonight.
Okay, and he said that we're gonna have a meeting probably one more with the budget, one more time in April, right, Mr. Johnson?
We have to have three.
Two more?
Yeah.
I'm gonna ask this, we've looked at other budgets too. In Pembroke and Eastport, theirs is 1.5 million, and I'm trying to figure out why Lubec's would be 2.2 million. We're
Eastport,
all the same, basically the same.
Eastport is 2.6, because they've got high school, they're running two schools, you're only running one. In the case of Pembroke, 1.7 or so, theirs is less. And that in the case of Pembroke, that is a reasonable comparison, because they have about the same number of students, they have about the same number of staffing. You really can't compare Lubec and Eastport, because Eastport runs two schools. But your point about looking at the general budget, Pembroke would be a reasonable comparison.
And on ours though, what do we have that ours cost so much, so much more?
Well, a lot of it is historical salary scale, which would be greater than Pembroke and the contractual requirements, although Pembroke, every contract changes periodically. It also is a reflection of the individual nature of the schools. I hired three teachers at Pembroke last year that were either at entry level or in the second or third year. I had pre-K and K, 3 and 4, and we had a Title I person start. Well, that person is a tech, but they're going to be a teacher. They're going to get their teaching certificate and they'll be a teacher next year. Out of those three people, 2 of them are at entry level, and one of them is probably 2 or 3 years of experience. So those teachers are at the lower end of the scale. Now, there was a time when that was different, but Pembroke's had some people retired lately. There are some other costs, and in fairness, I haven't got Pembroke's budget right in front of me. But your transportation costs are significant, and we know that here in Lubec. You've got a lot of miles, a lot of geographical area. We know that your support staff contract is the most lucrative in the district. So you can make a general comparison if you look at student population and number of employees, but in order to really get specific, you'd have to get into the individual drivers of those costs.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any other public participation? Mr. Tinker?
How you doing? Listen, I was just curious of the procedure to get something put on the agenda for a school board meeting. What is that procedure?
You can do one of two things. You can contact your chair directly, or you can call my office. But just so you know, the chair's got the deciding vote. So if you really hear the convenience of it, if you want to email your chair, or that'd probably be the easiest thing to do, but if he's not available, you can call my office.
So I did call your office and I talked to you, and you had told me that you were gonna try to get something on the agenda for me. the second meeting that I've been to, and I haven't seen it on there, I was just curious.
Yeah,
There was a reason for that.
Refresh my memory, I may have just lost a note, I've got like 12 sticky notes right next to my laptop.
I called you a few weeks ago about the athletic situation. You told me I will be in the school in Lubec on Monday, and I will work to get this on the agenda for you.
I thought we addressed that, and I was in the school on that Monday.
Yep.
And I thought we addressed that at the previous agenda, at the previous board meeting. Was that not addressed to your satisfaction?
Well, not really, no, there was a little public participation, but I was hoping to get it on the agenda so that it's publicized.
Call me again.
Okay, thank you.
And I thought that we had addressed that at the last meeting, but if there's some other thing that you wanna talk to me about, just call me again. I'll be in the office tomorrow.
Okay, thank you.
Any other public participation? Okay, consider the approval of March 14, 2019 school committee minutes as written or with corrections as recommended by the superintendent of schools. Everyone got a copy of that from them? A motion on this, please. Any second?
I'll second it.
Any discussion? All in favor? All opposed? All abstaining? Okay, one abstain, okay. Principal's report. On this,
Enough there, you need more?
One more.
So this is a long list, but our next meeting isn't until the end of April, so I thought I'd try to get everything in. There's events coming up people want to plan for. So first off, the presentation from the leadership school. I did contact Sarah Adkins, and she in turn contacted Jess Anderson. There is no cost for this. They were both available and will be here on April 26th. The leadership school is a school out of Noblesboro. They look at promoting the values of kindness, respect for others, and environmental stewardship. They do team building activities, outdoor activities, all of those things.
Okay, and this covers
K-8.
all the grades.
Yep, this covers K-8. I also looked into them coming in October, the leadership school. Wanted to throw it out to the board to see what you think. The only day that is left open in October, they're booked already, is October 4th to have them come back during bullying month. The cost of that is $41 per student and $500 per facilitator. When I do the math, they are expensive. I would assume that they would send 2 facilitators. It would
The
be,
syllabus they have?
close to
They do
4.
the program, or-
I just printed off bits and pieces, there's more on the internet. So she has penciled Lubec in for October 4th. I told her that I would get back to her tomorrow, because I didn't want to take a date if we aren't going to use it.
What do you mean no cost on?
For the presentation, because I went through the Department of Education, for the presentation on the 26th, they're not charging us.
Oh, it would be what?
Yes, but the second time, it would be just the leadership school, and we would need to pay them. So I don't know if you're interested, I do need to get back to her and either stay on her calendar or just get off.
That's it, go ahead.
Can we come back to that?
Yeah.
Okay. The next piece, there have been a couple of teachers who have put things on Donors Choose. So I asked Kathy if she would do a little write-up explaining what Donors Choose is. That is a website for teachers. They choose a project, they submit it, and then people donate. What Kathy is currently asking for is one of those wall coolers to
Okay.
refill water bottles.
I have to say something about this. I saw this on social media and I was like, wait a minute, okay? Because when you go out and solicit donations from the public, you're doing that because there is no money in the budget to do this, to facilitate this. Something like this should come to the board, or should come to the superintendent and say, hey, we have the money to put one of these, you know, water bubblers in the gym that, you know, fills up water bottles and stuff. We most certainly do. We have endless budgets and endless accounts that we can earmark from sports stuff. I mean, this is a sports type thing. So the problem I have with something like that is that, you know, it hit me as, okay, it's a surprise. Why weren't we asked if we had money in the budget for this? I understand the idea, it's a project thing, and it's a good thing to maybe go out and show the kids how to solicit funds or, you know, get things donated or whatever, but it kind of tweaks the public's perception that, you know, we're being stingy or scrimping on things. Okay?
I think in her letter, one of the reasons she explained is because this sporting good is doing some big thing for schools.
Yeah. So, the other question I had was that some of the figures that were on that on installation and so on like that, $60 for installation? I mean, to be hooked up to plumbing, to be hooked up to electricity.
My understanding is she would have it put above an existing water fountain.
So, I mean, as far as, you know, we do have money, we do have access to money somewhere in the budget or somewhere in those accounts that we could actually pull money out, so, yes.
I'm kind of flummoxed by your response a little bit, just because we do have money. And if we can leverage other funds for special projects like this, then we have school board money for additional things. I don't see a conflict there.
The conflict comes in, to me, as a perception that the school board is being stingy and not allowing things to happen in the school that people are asking for.
I would never think it that way.
That's your opinion. My opinion is different opinion. Go ahead.
Don't we have that full list of, that sheet of all the funds of grants that are
Yes.
earmarked that we can only use for certain things? And these were already grants that were given, and we had no project to utilize those grants, and that money's sitting there, not from taxpayers or anything. These were grants that were already given, but they can only be applied to certain projects. So it's not costing the taxpayers anything, and this money's waiting to be
Already
used
sitting
for a
there.
project, something like this. And it's been in there for years, and if we have a project that'll utilize those funds, should we utilize them? Because it's just been sitting there for years and years, waiting for a project to use.
I mean, I've spoken about these funds at least a couple of times, and yes, we would have to make a good faith effort to honor the original intent of those funds, but I also reported to this board that it is within the board's purview to redesignate those funds if they cannot be spent on their original purpose. So this board can vote to reassign some of those funds to a, I guess you could say, a loosely related project I'd be comfortable with. And to give you a couple ideas of things, just to refresh our memory about what we talked about, I've stated that I could support the bullying presenter with some of those funds, as well as a security system potentially, for sample use of those funds, which you're right, Stephanie, that money is there.
And it's a considerable amount, I can't remember exactly. It's,
It's $1,000, just top of my head,
how much?
$1,000.
No,
Oh,
all
your
those
funds.
funds,
Oh,
all those
oh,
funds, was it close to 100,000?
Right.
Yeah.
That is sitting there
page
waiting
as
for a
well.
project to use. Those were grant funds that we had no project to use them on. And they've been sitting there for years. And should we utilize it for projects now for the kids like this?
I mean, this board can designate simple vote for those funds that we can't readily have a use for. And if we wanted to do that at a given meeting, I would bring the list. I don't have a copy with me tonight, but I would bring a list for the board to see, so we know exactly from where we would be reassigning those funds. Just to give you an example, there's $17,000 or $18,000 left on the line from ITV that hasn't been used in at least probably 15 years. And those are the funds I'm kind of holding with an eye to a potential security system for the school. There's money there that's
There's $10,000 balance in one account that can be used for sports equipment and so on like that. I mean, we do need new soccer goals this year.
I mean,
So-
any, you know, there's a line there for proceeds, and when we sell equipment, whether we have a yard sale or put it out to bid or whatever, we sell used athletic
Yeah.
equipment, we've had some of that come to us. You can take the proceeds and support whatever.
I have the list, Mr. Johnson, if you guys want to do.
That's not the list I'm referring to, I'm talking about the list that was in the audit for unexpended grant funds. We would have to track them internally, but I would want us all looking at the same document.
I'm still not clear how it's a bad thing for a teacher to get the initiative to bring money into the school to take, that then does not have to be spent from any other fund.
I
And
didn't-
how is that possible?
I didn't say it was a bad initiative. I said it's something that should be either brought to the superintendent or the board, so the board knows about it, the superintendent knows about it. So when people say, hey, you're being stingy, what's going on? You cut back on your budget, you don't wanna put a water fountain in for the kids? Well, we know what's coming down the road for us. Cause I had someone call me and say, hey, what are you doing over there? They were out looking for money for a water bubble. You know, what's going on? You guys can't fund a water bubble? That's where I'm getting at.
So perhaps we could encourage Kathy to move forward on this, and if she runs short on funds, then we could help out and perhaps make a recommendation that teachers, when teachers have ideas, they run it by somebody. I mean, I agree with Sinead that, rewarding initiative is a good thing.
I'm just wondering, I mean, it would be good if we didn't have any other funds, and not taking from the taxpayers' money, but we're asking the public or they're asking the public to fund this, of which we already have the funds for this. So we're asking to fund something that we already have funds for, that have been sitting there. So,
This is set up through Dick's Sporting Goods and other stores that is nationwide, and it's done through all kinds of different schools. It's just, it's not just Lubec, it's numerous schools that ask donors if they want to help with a project. They don't have to. You know,
but shouldn't they be told, we already have grant funds that could be used for this, but we don't want to use it, we want you to give more money? I would be a little bit upset if I gave money to something and I found out that the organization already had grant money for that, they just didn't want to, they wanted to ask for new funds from the public. That's my only thing. If it was something we didn't have any funds for, or grant funds for, I mean, fine. Yeah. Okay.
I think she's looking at an answer from me when I go back, but she asked to put it back on. I don't know where to go with it.
I don't know where to go with it either. I mean, you know, you got something you want to add?
Well, can we hold a vote on what to do with it? Can I make a motion under old business?
Make a motion if you want to, you know, go right ahead.
I'd like to move that we, thank Kathy Morse for her initiative and, offer funds from the audited list if she runs short to obtain her goal.
And put director to go forward with this.
Yes.
Okay, so your motion, if I can rephrase that, if I may be so bold, is to encourage Kathy to continue, but let her know that if she comes up a little short, we might be able to help her?
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor? All opposed? Motion carries.
That's okay. The past couple of weeks, Mrs. Murphy has been meeting with parents. And I attended one of those meetings. It was well attended by parents. It was very positive and supportive. And what she would like to do is change the format of graduation so that it is more of a family, fun, activity-based day. This is her proposal. And I did not hear any opposition from any parents. This is tentative. They'll continue to iron out. They'll still have diplomas and that type of stuff, but they'll go like on a little class trip.
And they give them place for this?
Yes, they have done some good things. I mean, the bus would be provided like it would be for any regular class trip. The alarm system, I still have not heard back from Peter Fielding.
Kidding.
No, the only person.
He's been here, I saw him in the building.
Right, he was here, well, last board meeting I hadn't heard back from him. So we still have the one from Seacoast Security. That quote did expire like March 18th. May still honor it. How do you want to proceed?
Well, we get a hold of Mr. Fielding and say, you know, one last time. Other than that, we're gonna have to look somewhere else.
Okay.
That's my feeling on it.
Okay.
No, he was in the building, I saw him.
Yes, yep, he did walk around with Sheldon. The next piece talks about extra things that we do for our children. I thought it would be good for new board members to hear some of the things, and just a reminder to everybody that's out there in the community. We certainly appreciate it. We have the Chirwanki Foundation come once a year that is science-based, and that is done through the Lubec Library. We have island readers and writers come who bring an author with them, and children do writers' workshops. We participate in the SNAP program, which is a cooking program. I believe it's grades 5 through 8, in conjunction with the University of New England, and the LCOC allows us to go up there and use their kitchen facility. We have bikes for books where children read to earn books. We have an outing club. We have Cash for Careers, which takes our 8th graders on different trips, plus they get little mini scholarships when they complete high school. We have community readers that come in through the Lubec Women's Club. We have the Cobscook Shore Outdoor Education Program. They have gone kayaking. Their next trip coming up is mountain biking. We travel to the Coal Transportation Museum, the Challenger Museum, the Gulf of Maine, which is in Portland. We have Children's Stage Adventure, Craft Day, Beach Day, Christmas Play, the Down East Institute, which is held in Beals Island. Reading is Fundamental, which is part of the library. They were just here the other day. We do a field day. We have WA come down to do dances. We do a beach cleanup day. We have a 100-day project. Miss Cindy comes, that will be part of our Literacy Comes Alive night, which is coming April 4th, in which there'll be some foreign language things performed. Apple comes down and does professional development, not only for staff, but for students as well. They're doing some really nice things. MLTI Day, next year, our 8th graders will participate in a full day with them. We have the after-school program, and it's just nice to be able to say thank you to all the businesses, organizations, parents, community, and staff that help with these.
Yes, they all do a fine job.
Yes, lots and lots of activities. It's wonderful.
Okay,
The rest of, oh, go ahead, so
you were going
I go
so fast,
fast.
I'm kind of out of breath. You were talking about bikes for books, and you said a program where kids read to get books. Did
Bikes,
you
I mean,
misspeak?
yes, I
Okay,
most certainly
okay.
did.
Thank you.
That's through the Lions Club, the Masons, I believe.
Okay.
I had 2 people ask me about this, and I saw it also posted when the school posted the latest thing. I think there was an owl or something at the library.
The Chirwanki
And
Foundation.
And there was a comment about, what about the homeschool kids? It would be nice if, any of these that are available to the homeschool kids, is there a notice that's sent out, or how do the people that homeschool their children know that they can be involved in some of these outings? Or which ones that they can be involved in, that these are coming up? Because I know that I had 2 homeschool parents. that-
Contact the school.
They have no advance notice of what activities are available? All of these are? Or,
A homeschool student can indeed participate.
Mhm.
Next
How do
week
they
we
know
have
that
extra
when the
remember
activities
to-
are taken, or going on? Is there a calendar list for them?
I don't believe there's one specifically for them. You may-
Not for them, is there a yearly
I keep
list
a
of?
calendar for me, but
Because
these
you've got
dates
one in the
always,
school.
yes, they change. And that's what part of this is right here for the upcoming.
So for a homeschool parent, they would have to call every month, see if there was any activities that their child could be involved in.
Yes, you would have to be one or the other. Either the parent would have to take the initiative, or the school would have to mail one home. There would have to be some flow of communication between the two.
So we kind of earmark that to make that happen, make it mailed at home to the homeschool parents?
There isn't that many.
Well, that's
We don't
what
have any
going on.
paperwork of homeschool children.
We don't have any paperwork. for
In my office, I have no paperwork for homeschool children.
Okay, well, in the student information system, there should be a box to check, and Noreen can call it up that says transfer to homeschool. Now, the other thing that I would say is if she can't pull it up on the software, all parents of homeschool are required to do what's called a notification of intent to homeschool and have that on file in my office. So if a parent hasn't completed that paperwork, they haven't declared their intent to homeschool, that has all other kinds of problems associated with it. So, in the information system, if we have a student that started with us, this is the best case scenario, they start with us for whatever reason, the parent wants to homeschool, and when we exit the student from the information system, there's just a checkbox that says transfer to homeschool. It's got a numerical code, but Noreen should be able to pull it up in the software. As far as paperwork goes, a parent is required to fill out notice of intent to homeschool. I have a copy in my office. The parent is required to have an educational plan on file with the state and a copy to me. Parent is required to have a third-party evaluator who will send me a letter indicating the student has made adequate yearly progress. And then year 2, notice of intent to continue homeschooling. So there are 3 or 4 things that the parent has to do, and it only is applicable if the child is between the ages of 7 and 17, which is mandatory school age. Long
Pull that
story.
information up and actually, as these things come along, put a note out to these parents or whatever that,
So,
this is gonna happen.
right, so what could happen is, have Noreen check the information system. If we think there are parents that haven't got the right paperwork on file, contact my office and we can double check the notice of intent to homeschool file that we had, and we can pull an address off it. Which is a long segue into saying, if you don't have the address at the school level, we might have it at my office, and we can notify them that way.
So how does that work for parents who have moved in and we've never had their children in our system? How do we track that?
That's a tough one, because if a parent just arrives and doesn't enroll their child, and the child is between ages 7 and 17, they're technically in violation of state law,
Yeah, technically.
which came up when the commissioner visited last week, but they have to make an educational plan for their child. They either have to enroll them with us in the public schools, they have to file their plan with intent to homeschool, but a child between the ages of 7 and 17 is mandatory school age, there has to be a plan somewhere. So,
You have a question?
Yeah, I was just interested in the new school website. Is that accessible to only the parents and children at the Lubec School, or is it to the general public? And could you put that information on the website
That's
to
a
the
good
general
idea.
public?
That's another option. It is accessible to the general public.
Okay, that may alleviate all that other, and put that monthly.
That's a great idea.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And Warner has a question.
Okay, the financial report?
What's that? Oh,
This is the
yes,
financial
yes.
report.
Wanda has a question.
Yes.
I was just wondering if, do you know how many homeschool students are out in Lubec? Or would that be on file down at our school? Or Mr. Johnson?
It would be on file in my office. And when I say this came up I just said it came up when the commissioner visited, and it's included as part of my report. One of the other superintendents, the gentleman from Woodland, expressed a high concern of his to the commissioner that in his mind, students were unaccounted for. And first words out of the commissioner's mouth were, are these students in question of mandatory school age from 7 to 17? And if so, they would have to have some type of plan on file. either homeschool or in-school enrolled, but there would have to be some thing on file.
In Ryan's case, he's online public school, he's not homeschooled. I know a lot of people that have got that misconception. My son is schooled at home on online, public school, so I don't need to send you a notice is what I was told, so if that's
No,
an issue.
and that's right, and that's not an issue, because I was
Okay,
aware of
all right,
that. That's not an
If
issue.
that was one of the ones that he was complaining about, I just wanted to reiterate with you, because through Maine Virtual Academy, they told me I did not have to send that letter to you. so
So, see,
that's-
Well, let's see if we can get this information up on the website,
Okay.
and this right here, we'll wanna see it. Even if they have a child enrolled in the school, they'll know what's going on.
Just a nice little article on a new, education person at the Department of Education. I happen to know this lady, she was the principal of the year. Makes it sound positive in terms of mandates aren't gonna come from the state down saying you have to do this. So that's just something, at your leisure for reading. You didn't have a chance to
Government
see
out
that.
there to help.
She's actually from the field of education. The rest of this, as I said, is just because we don't have a meeting until the end of April. So I just brought everything together. On April 1st, there are some staff members who are going to cultivation safe and supportive schools using the trauma response framework. We were invited over by the Machias school system, and it's $20 a head for the day. This is with Cassie Yackley. April 4th is Explore WA Day. April 4th is Making Literacy Come Alive, 6 to 7 in the cafeteria. Refreshments will be provided. It's also part of our school-wide plan. Heather Henry will be present, and there'll be some nice things done by children, so please all do come. Next Friday, we have the honor roll, perfect attendance, good behavior recognition, 7:15 a.m. the cafeteria, trying to do that for parents who need to get to work. So they can come in early, be part of that, and then get to work on time. On April 5th, there is a job fair for grades 3 through 6 in Machias. On April 11th,
Job fair for grades 3 through 6.
this has been, Machias Savings Bank, I believe, that's been 8-10 years going now.
What day, Tina, is that?
April 5th. April 11th is a chronic absenteeism workshop put on by the Maine Small Schools Coalition, to get that all out. Catherine Biddle will be present at that.
Where is this
At
taking place?
Jeff's Catering and Brewer. Mrs. Murphy, Ms. Buscat, and Mrs. Robertson will be attending. April 12th is an early release day for all. The 15th through the 19th is April vacation. The 22nd through the 3rd will be your MEA science test. On the 22nd, Healthy Acadia will be at school working with students in grades 6 through 8 on the dangers of vaping. Island Readers and Writers will be here with a author out of New York, I believe, on the 23rd. On the 25th of April, grades 5 through 8 will be going to the Coal Transportation Museum and the Challenger Center. On the 26th, we have Kindness Respect presentation from Sarah Adkins and Jess Anderson. The 25th and 26th is the Maine Principals Association Spring Conference. On the 29th, grade 8 will be going to the University of Maine at Machias, that's for the Cash for Careers. On the 30th, they'll be going to Washington County Community College. On the 30th, we have a Washington County Leadership Team meeting that I will be attending. May 3rd, your progress reports go home. May 9th is a principal retreat for all Washington County principals. May 10th is WA Step Up Day. On the 15th, grades 5 through 8 will be going to Gulf of Maine. The 20th through the 24th will be the Children's Stage Adventure Week, in which there'll be a play that Friday night. On the 23rd will be your athletic celebration at 6 p.m. in the cafeteria. The night of the 24th is the actual night of the play. The 31st is a release day. June 4th is 8th grade celebration. The 6th is Beach Day. The 7th is Beach Day rain date. The 10th is the last student day, and the 11th is the last teacher day. And I know that's a lot, but I wanted to get it out because we don't meet until the end of
We'll talk about more next month.
Did I not hear a step up there from Machias as well?
Oh, I may have left it out, but there is a step update from Machias, and my calendar is out in my car.
Okay. Anyone from the school board have anything to add? Okay, well, I do. I met with, another vendor talking about boilers and so on like that. We went over some plans, plots and so on like that, so. You'll see some of those numbers reflected in the budget tonight. We're looking at, a minimum of $500,000. And the big part of that is switches and electronics and all kinds of things to replace the boilers we have here, so. And that is reflected in the budget right now, so. We're gonna have to set out an RFP, request for proposals, probably by the end of April, for various companies around the state looking for proposals and bids on putting this plan in place and in motion, so. Superintendent's report.
Got a few quick items in my report this evening. As I have indicated earlier this evening, the Commissioner of Education was in Machias last Wednesday meeting with the Washington County Superintendents. When there's a new commissioner, she'll go around, he or she will go around to the superintendent's regions in the state. There are 16 of them, one per county. And Commissioner Pender-Macon had already been to York, Lubec, and Hancock before she came to the Washington County group last Wednesday. And I must say that I am very encouraged with our new commissioner. Her demeanor is much more positive. She's very enthusiastic, very passionate about education. I think it's safe to say that she's very well received by the group. I would almost characterize it as a breath of fresh air. But the group did not hesitate to impress upon her some of the concerns that all of us had around the county, and they were very similar. Topics of conversation ranged from the inadequacies of the funding formula to the new proposed teacher salary. That garnered a lot of discussion. General items on administration and testing. I had mentioned earlier concerns about monitoring attendance were expressed at the meeting, but generally this new commissioner, she made a very positive impression upon the group. And I firmly believe that there's cause for optimism after the previous years. So she was very well received. I believe she'll make a good faith effort. She was very curious to hear about the rural areas. And I'll share this point before I go on to my next item in my report. In going around the table, she commented that the Washington County group expressed very fundamental needs. And she had been in York and Hancock and Aroostook, and she said that our questions and concerns as a group reflected different needs. We weren't concerned about more abstract things like some piece of legislation. We were concerned with keeping the lights on in our school district, and that was a reflection of the inadequacies of the funding formula. Many of my colleagues pointed out that as far as the labor market index goes, we have the lowest labor market index in the state. Many of the towns in the district are a .84, which is the minimum, and what that essentially means is for every dollar spent on salaries, there's only 84 cents put back into the formula. Whereas in southern Maine, where salaries are higher, their number 1.15, 1.2. So they're actually being compensated through the formula at a higher rate because their salaries are higher and the perceived cost of living is higher in the southern part of the state. My colleague from Narragansett was quick to point out that his district lost $170,000 on the proposed subsidy for the upcoming year, whereas Sanford gained $6 million, just Sanford alone. Sanford, close to the border with New Hampshire, they had a major school construction project there. Statistically, they lost kids, but their subsidy went up. And Superintendent Ron Ramsey from Overland 37 was quick to call the attention of that to the commissioner. Because many of our districts, usually if we lose students, our subsidy goes down. So he couldn't quite explain that one. But long and short of it is that I'm very encouraged both by the optimism and the energy of our new commissioner, and I'm looking forward to the future. Couple other items in my report tonight. I'd like to appoint Colby Sawtell as the softball coach. And I would also like to just make the group aware that at our next meeting on April 25th, I would like us to consider scheduling the second budget workshop. We're required to have 3 by law. Historically, we piggyback those with board meetings to encourage participation. So if we could meet, if we want to do 4 or 4:30 on the 25th, transition into our regular school board meeting. And we have in the past saved the third one for right before the referendum vote in June. That would leave us the month of May with some flexibility there if something changes. But please consider the next budget workshop on the 25th.
So 4 or 4:30.
We went at 4 last time. What's the preference of the group? 4? Okay.
And just a clarification on the agenda there, because of punctuation issue. The Commissioner of Education will not be here at our next meeting. He was just reporting on the Commissioner's report meeting in Machias 2 weeks ago, so. Okay. Adjustments to the agenda. You have a question?
I forgot to come back and ask about that October 4th date.
Oh, yes. Okay, October 4th on
That was having the leadership school.
the leadership school in here. And this is at no cost to the
No,
school?
this
No.
is at cost. This
This
is
is
approximately 4,000. But I wanted to grab the date just so we didn't get knocked out and I could cancel the date. I need to.
And we can fund this through one of those.
Yep, I've got, one of them is listed as Title IV prevention. It's an old Title IV grant. Title IV has since been completely reorganized. It's $1,500 to $1,600 that will go a long way to defray the 4,000. I can probably find a full form anyway, so yes.
Is this gonna be another GoFundMe thing?
I don't believe so.
Oh, okay.
I think we should, I think given the concern of the community about that particular issue. I think we
Asking for a
should.
motion.
I'll move to authorize her to set the date and find funding.
Second on that? Any discussion? All in favor? There you go.
Thank you.
Okay, adjustments to the agenda.
We have one, I would like a brief executive session for a personnel matter. We can make that number 6 at the very end.
Okay, what would be code prefix on that, you know?
I don't know the actual numerical code by statute. Typically, my assistant pencils that in. We call it personnel. We've got the de facto
Okay, we got
legal
the
reference in my office.
Okay, old business. Okay, and the new business. Consider the first reading of policy JEAA, student attendance, student absence, and tardiness.
I bring hard copies with me, so if you've downloaded what
No,
Helen
this
mailed,
was on
emailed.
the table when I got here.
Actually, if there's an extra one there, I'd circulate all of them. I didn't take one off the top for me.
Okay, this is a first reading.
Right.
So, question I have on responsibility for maintaining student attendance is shared responsibility. A, except for excused absences. Do we have a subset of excused absences that we can actually put on this document and say, this is an excused absence?
We don't have a pre-prepared subset. Theoretically, we could list the most commonly used ones. Illness, obviously, of doctor's appointments, medical appointments, things of that nature.
They're in state statute, and I believe they are in our handbook.
They're in the handbook.
I believe so.
So do they include things like if a parent wanted to take their children to a state, to national parks for a week?
I think it talks about pre-approved activities. that would fall under that category.
Generally, a principal can talk with a parent, and in a lot of cases, such a field trip would be deemed to have educational value.
Right.
I have seen cases where a student upon their return writes an essay about what they learned at Yellowstone. It would have educational value. That's fairly common practice.
Don't feed the bears. Okay, so any questions on this document? So on the first reading, looking for a motion?
I have a question. On the excused absences, are they, or are they not in the book? I'd like to know for sure. We think they're in the book, but we're not sure.
I did see something somewhere, but I'm sure.
The handout I gave you last board meeting?
Yeah.
That's gonna be in the student handbook?
That's where that came from, the handout that I gave you last meeting.
Because I see we're voting on the student the first reading of the student handbook. Is that gonna be in there? That's the next thing on the agenda.
I don't have a copy of the student handbook with me. I believe Maureen
Right there.
sent you all a copy. It's page 11.
The printer wasn't printing today, so.
Here's where we start. And it does not list them in there. No, is your attendance, charity, and inclusion degraded, so they are not listed in there. They are listed in Maine State statute.
Okay, I think they should be listed in there. So if people have any questions, it's right there in black and white, there it is.
Again, we're just looking for a first reading tonight.
Yeah.
Before I come with the second reading, we can amend that policy to include some of the commonly used items.
Well, I'd like to have what the state statute has on there and so on like that, so this way here we're in compliance with what is on the record in Augusta.
Do we cite the state statute as well?
I think we do on page 2 in the policy, or at the bottom, that's just a one page.
That's why I asked, because I looked for it and I didn't see it.
No, I take that back. Many times these policies cite the actual statute. This one just cross-references other
Right.
policies.
So can we just stick it in there?
Policies that are involved in it. Okay, we have a motion on this first reading. Okay, any further discussion? All in favor of the first reading? All opposed? 4 to 1. Okay. Consider the second reading of the proposed 2019-2020 AOS 77 school calendar.
Not quite enough.
Need one more?
Is it different than the other one?
No.
No.
Okay. So everyone on the teacher side is happy with this?
Yes.
And the first day of school would be
After
September
Labor Day.
3rd? Okay. Now the whole AOS is going back to this day after Labor Day?
That has been the most popular calendar around the district. I've had the time
The
I've
last
been
2
with.
years it started in August, and I'm like, why are they doing that? And the last day of school would be
On or about the 10th.
The 9th,
the 9th, yeah.
pending snow days.
Right. So this is for adoption, correct? Any questions or comments? A motion on this?
I move we adopt the calendar for 2019-20.
And a second on that? Any further discussion? All in favor? Motion carries 5. Consider the first reading of the staff handbook.
because
2019, 2020, this is the staff handbook.
in addition to the handbook, Maureen should have sent copies of this. That tells just the changes. The only changes, update the cover and the effective date, add in about the school nurse, and add in about school messenger. That's it.
So no school announcements, will we also put that to be announced on the school website?
Yep, just did.
Since we have a website, let's use it.
Is that gonna come out on the, like in the cover of the handbook? That's, you know, www.lubecschool.com? Okay.
Any further anyone want to add? I have a motion on this, consider the first reading of the staff handbook 2019, 2020.
I'll move.
Second? Okay, any further discussion? All in favor? All opposed? All abstaining? One abstain. Okay. To consider the first reading of the student handbook 2019, 2020.
Update the cover, update the table of contents, add in the whole nurse piece of procedure, add the website info, and the lunch prices and student enrollment will be updated when that information comes down from central office.
Okay, and no school announcements are the same in that?
Yes.
There in this?
Yes. I'm gonna write it down here just to make sure though.
Yeah? Write it down.
If I don't,
It's not in writing.
I don't
because
remember it.
It never happened.
And the absentee policy, with what Schneider was saying,
Reasons?
cited with the statute, is that gonna be in there? Wasn't that,
That's the wishes.
wasn't that where it was supposed to go?
The policy,
So,
yeah, we
discussing?
just talked about something like that. There should be a list of school sanctioned excused
Yep.
absences.
Yeah, from the state statute.
Right.
Done.
Okay, can I have a motion on the first reading of the student handbook 2019, 2020? A second on that motion?
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor? All opposed? All abstaining? All abstaining. Okay, thank you. To consider the discussion of the Lubec School Department proposed budget.
Did you give one 5 and one for me?
That should be 6 there.
Okay.
I've got one already. Okay, so a couple things we'll notice right quick. If we look on revenue page, right on page 1, you'll notice that your budget has changed significantly since our last meeting. I can tell you exactly what the changes are. At the board's request, I directed my special ed director as well as Leslie to put the special education technician back in to your budget. So if we look just quickly on page 4, where it says new ed tech 3 on the right, that is indeed the ed tech in question. Also changes, updates to the budget around facilities maintenance. If we want to just quickly turn ahead to page 10. The items that we discussed at the last board meeting around the HVAC, roof repair, and heating fuel. I added $15,000 to the heating fuel line, $20,000 for a line designated as roof repair, and $75,000 that you see under school year 1920 as a projected payment, potentially, on a loan that would have to be voted upon to support upgrading the HVAC system. At the end of the day, if we flip back to page 1, I'm happy to say that even with those additions, your budget is still down. Gross budget is down $20,000. That's the very bottom where it says grand total all revenue at the far right. And the impact taxation is down $44,000, where it says total local revenue all the way to the right, negative 44,361. And that would still be a savings. That would be approximately a 0.25 savings. 1 mil here in Lubec's around 175 million. So it's something around a 0.25 mil savings to the taxpayer. Just to again refresh our memory on the budget, you can see your state subsidy listed, $240,799.56. And I left the balance forward the same at $150,000. We know from your audit that that money is available, and that is acting as tax relief. On page 2, again, salary and benefits for our teaching staff, along with lines for supplies, equipment, travel, dues and fees. Just a quick note under that dues and fees, if you're wondering what that is, most of it is to support the Washington County Consortium. We belong to that. Our staff make great use of their professional development offerings, and we also contribute a fee basically to the teacher support system excuse me, that our teachers are required to participate in for recertification. So that's what that line entails. On page 3, you can see your tuition line, secondary tuition. This is the biggest area of cost savings, and I commented on this at our last meeting. 6 fewer students anticipated for next year. We're dropping from 37 to 31. So 6 fewer students translates into a fairly healthy savings that you can see there in secondary tuition. Gifted and talented program largely unchanged. Minor increase, $275. Special education on page 4. Again, you can see where that new tech was added. The summary is on the right. The individual lines are just to the left of that, under 19 and 20. You can see those zeros are all now numbers. Yes, Stephanie?
Excuse me, this isn't a new tech. We're just retaining what we've always had. It's not a new position.
Well, yeah,
It's just retaining exactly what we've always had.
well, that,
And then it says grant funded.
okay. So the person that we've always had that you're referring to is the person who's listed under grant funding. So next year, that person is still listed here, and the grant that the LE stands for is local entitlement, and that's federal money. So that person that you're referring to has already been reassigned with new duties right now as I'm sitting in my chair for the existing year. So the new Ed Tech 3, all things being equal, that would indeed be a new hire for next year.
Wait a second, because we already had the money on the last budget to have somebody this whole year. And so you just got rid of somebody in the middle of the year?
Nobody has lost their job.
No, but you've eliminated the special ed tech in the middle of the year?
She was reassigned,
In the middle of the year?
yes. And we could do that because of the numbers, as I reported at the last meeting, and the individual needs of our special education population. That course of action was not taken haphazardly. But again, with the numbers that our special education teacher serves on a daily basis, knowing those numbers, as well as the needs of our total population, we were able to make that reassignment.
But this is a grant from the position.
Yes. And if you
So-
look under 18-19, current year, you can see these zeros in your local budget. Whereas in 19-20,
So if it's not costing
you
us
can see the numbers.
anything, why are we pulling it?
If it's not costing you
It-
anything,
It's a
why are
grant
you
funded
pulling it?
position?
One of them is, yeah,
Yeah, so this is a grant funded position for special ed tech,
right.
and it's covered by grants. But we're saying, don't bother giving us the money, we don't need it, we don't want a special ed tech, even though it's free money? What?
The LE, local entitlement, comes to us every year by
Yeah.
application. Formula-based grant comes to us every year. We are spending it right now on that position. And in proposed next year, which is what you have in front of you, you're still gonna be spending it on that position, all things being equal. And we'd be adding an ed tech, as you can see, right above that, total cost, something around $37,000 when you figure salary and benefits. And that's based on an ed tech 3 in the lower third of the scale probably.
But, okay, so I'm not understanding. So we aren't gonna have a special ed tech, but there's already one assigned. So this ed tech went somewhere else that isn't grant funded anymore? And-
No,
That ed tech that he was talking about is a one-on-one ed tech right now.
Okay, and that's not a grant funded. But it's one-on-one for special ed,
right,
okay? So why isn't that grant funded by special ed?
it still is.
Okay,
That's
so we're
why-
retaining this position as a grant funded position.
Right.
Yeah, we're not losing it and creating a new one. This is grant funded right now, we're gonna continue grant funded with the exact same person who is a one-on-one for somebody in special ed.
Yeah, but the grant only funds one position. One position. And that person was removed from the classroom and reassigned as a one-on-one, but they were always grant funded. So by taking that person out of the classroom, as I reported to this board directed me to put them back into, or put a position back into the classroom. And that's what this budget reflects.
Right.
Because that one-on-one, the need will still be there for the one-on-one position next year, no matter what. That need will still be there because of the needs of our student population.
But the reason for putting another person back into the special education classroom as an ed tech is a couple of things. Number one is to have a consistency of having a familiar person there if the special education teacher is absent or tied up with someone else.
I mean, I've honored the board's request.
And it frees up a hand to, you know, work one-on-one with these children a little more than what they might get now. But
The board wanted me to put that back in, and I've honored the board's request, and that's where it is, and that's the amount of money associated with it. On the next page, page 5, you see some special education costs associated, including supplies, books, equipment, and also secondary special education costs. On page 5, you can see the costs associated particularly with tuition to day treatment. Those costs are still going to be with us next year, and those are reflected on page 5. Extracurricular, co-curricular, largely unchanged. This is where we pay our coaching and extracurricular stipends from. As you can see, I also updated on page 6. We have a grant-funded nurse, so we took that out of the local budget. You can see the zeros under 1920. We don't need to support that position locally. We have a grant, I'm happy to say. Student testing, that's STAR assessment, $3,500 at the bottom of page 6. On page 7, you can see system administration. And fielded a question on this tonight, and I'll mention it again. At the top, you see money associated with school board member stipends and benefits. You see a line for your audit, legal services, insurance, dues and fees, travel. Those are all local costs. The bottom, where it says superintendent of schools, that is your AOS assessment, the 101-17-15, $101,017.15. That's your share of the district budget, your AOS assessment. And you can see that went down $4,103.49, and that's because we have declined in population at a faster rate than the other towns. Now that I've been around the horn with a first draft budget in all the towns, I had a couple of them say, well, we lost some kids too, why didn't our assessment go down? And I'm having to say that their rate is not dropping as fast as yours. So that's how that works. Strictly cost sharing based on a percentage of resident student count.
How many of all the schools that you work in have a declining population?
Six out of 7.
all the Perry.
All the pairs. Everybody gets greatly from tuition at the elementary level.
Question.
On the liability insurance, under school administration, is that just to cover professional malpractice? Or does that cover any kind of buildings?
Buildings and.
That covers the school.
It does.
Okay, it's just listed under adult system administration.
If you're wondering what the $225 increase is, I'm happy to say that a young and aggressive insurance salesman convinced me to add data protection at the building level here in Lubec. So you and Eastport have data protection. And fortunately, the central office did, and I've reported on that before, but I've directed this young man whom I saw yesterday to add it to all the other remaining towns. So if you had a data breach at the building level and needed some snazzy new technology and to upgrade your security and a better server and a whatever, you could theoretically make an insurance claim. So let's keep our fingers crossed that it doesn't come to that.
What's the deductible?
Don't know that one off the top of my head, but
On the limit on liability.
you do have protection, so. On page 8, principal's office, you see the salary and benefits for our principal and secretary. You can see lines here for copier lease, copier maintenance, telephone, advertising, messenger fees for the messenger system, technology, repairs, hardware and software, and you can see the note there, $3,000 for grading report. This particular item was moved from the regular education cost center into the principal's office cost center. It's not a new cost, but it seemed to make a little more sense there, seeing as how Noreen is the one who uses that. So that's just a reorganization. Transportation and buses on page 9. You can see a reduction there, and again, largely due to the fact that we're not building in a 20% match for a grant opportunity. We're just putting in our one bus payment, and that is what is reflected in this particular cost center. Lines for repairs, maintenance, insurance, and fuel, all were adequate from the previous year, so we kept those. But the overall decrease, again, we do not have to make a 20% match. Yes.
I think, last time I was here, we talked about, getting back on the list for another bus at the state level. We do have to have discussion for that, don't we?
The question, it would matter whether or not we wanted to apply for another bus purchase in FY '20. Because, right now, knock on wood, 121 and 122 are going reasonably well. We had one gel up a couple of times this winter on an exceptionally cold day. There's been some maintenance bills. We've had to replace a heating valve or an air exchanger so the bus wouldn't overheat and shut off. All of that falls within the realm of some level of normalcy in terms of mechanical workings. We already have one bus payment, and that's for the new bus that was delivered right before Christmas. I'd be cautious about taking out 2 bus payments in a year when you're running 3 every day without too much issue. We retired 2. We had 2 that failed inspection. We retired 2. We used one of them as a replacement bus to get our new one. So, I mean, we could, but right now, we have 3 buses and 3 drivers, 2.5 drivers, depending upon availability. But, so we're getting the job done. But just for comparison purposes, Eastport right now, as I'm sitting in my chair, has 3 bus payments within next year's budget. And that's a drag of about $50,000 for 3 bus payments. Fortunately, one will come off after next year, but that's a $50,000 line for them. Facilities maintenance on page 10. I highlighted this section when we first began speaking of the budget. Other items, salary and benefits for our custodian, supply lines for trash removal, pay the water sewer bill, snow plow, sanding, fire and security, equipment, heating, fuel, as well as the proposed items for HVAC system and roof repair at the bottom of the page. This cost center is up, but I would say for obvious reasons. Finally, on page 11, coming down the home stretch, all other expenditures, this is, yes.
Did you check in with Renee because the sewer and water rates were gonna go up substantially if they do the new water treatment plant?
I must confess, I forgot to call Renee about
So
that.
it might be a substantial increase.
Thank you.
They've been sending notices out, so.
Thank you for reminding me.
Because we might have to increase that line,
I truthfully forgot, I'm sorry.
but Renee will have all that information.
And finally, on page 11, all other expenditures, this is your lunch program and contingency. You see money for food, as well as salary and benefits for our cook and assistant cook. Food, non-food at the bottom, as well as a $10,000 contingency. On page 12, you can see summaries for cost centers, what went up, what went down. Again, the gross budget is down $20,000 with an approximate savings to the taxpayer of 44 or somewhere around 0.25 mils.
Any questions on this budget presentation?
I have one question. When there is a designated need for a child to have a one-on-one during special ed, is there any kind of other grant funding or anything that can, federal funding, anything, when there is a absolute need that a child with special needs has to have that one-on-one? Is there additional funds that we can be looking for?
There are a couple things that I would say. Immediately, what comes to my mind, because I fielded similar questions around the district, are the availability of main care reimbursement. I've had to really dig into this and do some research, because I'm getting questions from a bunch of towns. So you've got a couple cases here that immediately leap to mind. The 2 students we send to day treatment, we cannot get main care reimbursement for those students because we pay tuition to Callis Day Treatment. The actual services are provided by Callis Day Treatment employees, so it is the Callis School Department who gets the main care reimbursement. And you can feel very 100% sure that they do indeed bill for that reimbursement. We can't get it because those costs, we are paying for tuition and travel. The services are being provided by the Callis School Department. The other thing that I've learned in my research, if we were going to bill for a one-on-one, that one-on-one would have to have BHP certification and training. There would have to be some minimum qualifications. Now, we can't always get a one-on-one that has BHP training. When we can, that type of service, if we employed the ed tech, it could potentially be reimbursable if they had BHP training, and if we can actually find a way to do the coding and do the billing.
Wouldn't it be prudent to maybe look at how to send one of our ed techs or the ed tech that's in this to that training, even if it's, and how extensive is that training? Is it a week-long thing? And it might be worth it to invest in that if we can get all the money back through main care.
I honestly don't know how intensive the training is, but I'll make a note of that as well to do some research.
Yeah, because
We can also employ some medical billing companies to actually do that for you.
I've actually done some research to that effect, and there is a billing agency in the state that is used by another school district in Washington County that they say, because I actually had our special ed director talk to their director, and I've talked to their superintendent, and there seems to be consensus that they actually do the billing for that particular school district, which would greatly streamline the process. But again, we could only get reimbursement if the services we provided directly were eligible. I mean, the family would have to be eligible for main care, BHP training would have to be in place. There are some things that would have to be in place. The other answer to your question, there are other types of supports out there. If a special needs child needed a specialized piece of equipment, an auditory amplifier for a child with some difficulties with speaking, a specialized wheelchair, some piece of equipment. There are some grants out there, I believe, that would support that as well. And I would be looking through a disability rights advocacy group to provide us with some suggestions of how to contact them if that need ever arose. There are some people that I could contact. So the answer to your question is those are the other 2 available sources of revenue that I would explore. In one case I am exploring as to how to help us.
yeah, because that's a big chunk, and if we could train somebody, even if we had to send them to a week training to alleviate that cost and get that money back, and to have somebody trained in our school, I think that would be very beneficial. So
I'm digging into this on behalf of several of my towns, and any information that I find, I'm sharing, so.
Okay, any further on the budget update? Okay. Now we have to enter into executive session for personnel matter.
Tom, can you wait outside for the kids?
Time in, 7:20.
So I get a motion.
We have a motion to go into executive session. Second. All in favor? Okay. One of them moved.
But you're going in, but you didn't have an opportunity for any of us to say anything about the budget tonight.
We will see you at the budget meeting.